Good afternoon, guys. Welcome back to the channel. Today's video is one that was actually thought of by one of you guys. And the reason I say that is about a week ago over on Instagram, I put up one of those question things asking video ideas that you guys would like to see. Right now, we're kind of in a lag on videos with the Cateye down at the shop being torn apart and nothing coming in for the Duramax this week. So I reached out to you guys, wanted some video ideas, and a couple of you guys asked about a video on what to look for when buying a used truck. So what I have got for you guys here today is a used truck. This is a 2011 half-ton. I would use the Duramax, but it's not a good comparison because there's a lot less diesels being bought than there are gassers. So what I have here is the newer body style half-ton because these are becoming really affordable and really into the price range. But don't think that this video is just for Chevys. This is going to go for, I'm going to try to keep it universal amongst all pickup trucks and what to look for. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So the biggest thing that you're going to be looking for when you're going and looking at buying a used truck is the truck worth what they're asking for? So you're going to have to do your research as far as book value and stuff like that. But if the truck seems to be in about that value, you want to start getting more in depth and deciding if it is worth its book value or not, because there are a lot of factors that could change its worth. All right, so one of the first things you're going to want to look at and look over is the exterior and the physical appearance of the truck. And reason being, if you see dents, stings, scratches, and stuff like that, that can help you work on your price or potentially get the price down lower to about where you want. The biggest things to be paying attention to are like the tires. That can be very costly if you have to buy a whole set of new tires. If the tires are getting low, then you can definitely expect a major expense coming up. But body damage does not necessarily mean the vehicle is going to be a bad vehicle. It does give you an indication of how the vehicle has been treated, so that can give you kind of an idea on its mechanical condition. So the exterior can definitely give you a little bit of a background story to how the vehicle has been treated. Now, while you're walking around the exterior, and trucks are nice and easy for this to do, look up and underneath of the truck. Get down, inspect the frame, inspect to see if maybe there's a lot of rust on the frame. Look and feel the frame. If it's really, really rough, like somebody's painted over rust, that'll tell you the frame is really rusted. Inspect your components like your axle, your drive shaft, your exhaust system, if you can get under the truck, and be looking for things like maybe boogered up welds on the exhaust system where maybe something's happened to it. Make sure the drive shaft isn't dented or dinged. It can cause a bad vibration. Look for leaks, any type of what looks like greasy or shiny components around the differential, the transmission, the oil pan. That'll kind of give you an indication that it could potentially be leaking something. And not that this is always a telltale sign, but if the transmission, and if it's a high mileage vehicle and the transmission and engine are absolutely spotless, like somebody has meticulously cleaned it, look even harder. They could be potentially hiding something from you that you're not seeing right off of the bat. Once you have done that, once you've inspected the visible parts of the truck, then you can really start diving in to the mechanical components. So first thing I always do is I always pop the hood, and what I'm looking for when I'm popping the hood is basically kind of a visual representation of the service that's been done to the truck and how maintained or not the truck has been. And the biggest way to do that is to be looking at the hoses. If the hoses are really dry rotted and cracked, they could be potentially getting ready to bust and leak, which could be a big expense for you. Inspect the plug wires. If they look really, really old, it's a good chance that not even the spark plugs have been changed in a while. Inspect your belts, like your serpentine belt, and even down there at your AC belt, and make sure that they don't look cracked or worn out. And then the next biggest thing, and something that a lot of people ignore or skip over, the battery. Now, the reason I say look at the battery, a lot of times they have a date sticker on it, or just kind of get a visual idea of how old it looks like it's been in here. If you have to go buy a battery, you're talking for a truck, sometimes upwards as much as $200 to replace the battery. So not saying that everybody is out to get you, but the truck may start fine when you go to get it because they've kept it charged or the vehicle's been running. But once you purchase the truck a week later, you let the truck sit for 2 days and it doesn't start because the battery is weak. So definitely inspect the battery, and if it has a really old date on it, maybe potentially get the dealership to put a brand new one in there for you as a part of the deal, or make them work on the price saying that, well, the battery is a little bit old, that's a big expense that I don't want to have to take on once I purchase the vehicle. But that is about what's going to do underneath the hood here as far as visually inspecting it. And you can look at other things like the coolant level, the oil level. That is kind of a general normal thing that you do. Now the coolant level, which you don't have to take the cap off to look at, but they always have right here your fill line that shows high or low. Now the reason I took the cap off is you want to look in there, and if that fluid is really black or dirty, that could be a telltale sign that somebody has not flushed the coolant system out in a while. And that is going to be, if you can't do that yourself, that gets kind of costly to have a shop take the time to do all that. So that is one thing to be looking at under the hood is oil. How clean does it look? Does it look really black, or does it look like it's recently been changed? And the coolant, is it a green or a pink or a good looking color, or is it black and really dirty? And if it's low, same thing goes for oil. If the oil level's low, not good. If the coolant level's low, not saying it's super bad, but it's a chance that it could be burning coolant, and that's not something you want to get into, because we could be talking about head gasket issues when you're looking at something like that. But if the coolant and oil level looks good, bring your way up into the inside, and we're going to start it. Now, here is the most important part of walking up to a used vehicle. If the vehicle is warm and somebody has already run it, come back. Do not start a vehicle while it's warm and listen to it, because it can hide a lot of symptoms. Once the vehicle's warm, if it does have clicking, knocking, ticking, it could go away that you could hear otherwise while the vehicle is cold. So of course it goes without saying, when you start it up, if the temperature gauge goes all the way up to running temp, then it's obviously warm. But you see there, it's pegged all the way at the coolest setting. We can go back up here and listen to see if we hear any knocking, ticking, or smoking out of the exhaust. And the worst that I hear on this truck is a little bit of belt squeak. And if you have somebody with you, or even adjust your passenger mirror when you start the vehicle, watch your exhaust pipe and see if you blow out any white or blue smoke. And that could also be a telltale sign of gasket issues or oil burning issues. So a couple things to recap on what I said on the first startup. Make sure the vehicle is cold. When you start it up, have somebody with you, or adjust the mirror to the exhaust pipe, so when you start it, you can watch to see if any white or blue smoke puff out of it. Not a good sign. Once the vehicle is started, let it run, let it get up to temperature, and then start inspecting things like the hoses, maybe listen for an exhaust leak, or take it for a ride, and then when you come back and park it, then you can look for the leaks or anything like that that could be happening while the vehicle is hot. So now that I've got it started up, let's go for a ride, and I'll tell you what to do and what to look for while you're driving the vehicle. All right, so other than obviously visually inspecting the interior to look at the condition of it, is it in good shape? Is there broken components? Is there missing knobs? Once you get through that inspection, always run through every electrical component you can possibly find. The windows, the locks, the turn signals, the wipers, the radio, the heat, the AC, and the AC is a big one. Even in the wintertime, I know people may be thinking you're not going to check that AC in the wintertime, but it's going to suck when you buy a used vehicle and in 2 months from now, when it starts getting hot, you turn on that AC and it doesn't work. And now you have to pay to have the AC recharge, or it needs a new compressor. So let's go ahead and go for a drive, and I'll tell you guys what to be looking for while you're driving the vehicle. So before I leave a lot of times I'll put it in reverse and then back and forward, and maybe forward and reverse one more time. And what I'm feeling is, how clunky does the transmission feel? Does it feel like it's slipping in and out of drive and reverse, or does it feel solid? This would especially mean a lot if we were talking about a high mileage vehicle. This one actually has a newer transmission. It was replaced just a few thousand miles ago, so it's super solid. But if the transmission was slipping, you would be able to feel it. It'd be lurching or slipping when it was engaging in the gear. This one feels really, really solid. Now, before I leave a lot, if we're talking about a four-wheel drive truck, I personally know people who have been screwed about four-wheel drive not working. Not that this is the greatest thing for the vehicle, but this is the best way I know how to tell you guys to figure out if the four-wheel drive is working or not. move it over into four-wheel drive. Most vehicles require that you have it in neutral. Put it back in drive. Now this truck is in four-wheel lock. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go out here on dry asphalt, and normally when you go to make a turn on dry asphalt when the four-wheel drive is engaged, it is extremely hard to turn, or it acts like it doesn't want to turn, which it just did. I know it was hard to tell. What that tells you is that the front diff is locked and so is the rear. Four-wheel drive on dry asphalt is going to try to grip. There's not going to be a lot of give to it when it's turning. So you're going to physically feel the four-wheel drive trying to grip the asphalt, and that would tell you that the four-wheel drive is engaged. Now, if it drives just like it normally does in two-wheel drive, then that would tell you that it did not engage in four-wheel drive. Now, other ways you can do this, you can have the shop put it up on a lift and then have them put it in four-wheel drive and then drive and watch and make sure all four tires are spinning. But if you don't have that option, that's kind of a easy way to tell if it's working or not. So this is kind of the fun part, is testing out all of the brakes and the motor and stuff like that. Get the vehicle up to speed and hit the brakes really hard. Now what you're doing is you're feeling the ABS to make sure the ABS is working fine. If the lines have gotten cut or snagged on something and the ABS is acting funny, you'll throw the ABS light, or you'll actually feel it in the gas pedal. That is one of the easiest ways to see if the ABS system is working fine, is to get up to speed and just slam on the brakes. Make sure you're in a safe area to do that. Please do not do that on the interstate when there's a ton of people behind you. If the brakes feel fine, of course you're listening for squeaking and making sure that it stops fine, and you don't throw in ABS code, you're probably pretty safe to go ahead and make sure that the engine runs fine. So I've just been driving around kind of normally and letting the truck get up to temperature, but now that the truck is up to temperature, I'm pretty much going to floor it and just run it up and listen for the engine not sounding good, maybe the transmission slips, or there's another problem. So that kind of sounds like a silly way to listen and make sure that the motor is running fine, but you have to think about it. There could be problems with the motor. It could throw an engine light or give you a code that the dealership or an individual is trying to hide when a vehicle turns higher RPMs. So maybe it doesn't throw a code for a NOx sensor or an O2 sensor if it's just driving around town, but the second you get above 3,000 RPM, amazingly, a check engine light comes on, and that could have cleared previous to you coming down. So that is why I say run the vehicle up to whatever max it'll let you do it. Take it out, try to find a higher speed limit road, punch it and run it wide open. Maybe do it a couple times just to see if the vehicle doesn't have an issue of lagging, throwing a check engine light code, or revealing some other issue that you've skipped over up to that point. All right, so I just parked the truck and now we've got the engine up to temperature. Now what you're gonna wanna do, now that you've made it back, pop the hood again, also get under the vehicle. And it kind of goes without saying, maybe don't wear very nice clothes when you go to look at a used vehicle, because you really do need to get on the ground and get under it, make sure everything's fine. Now that it's up to temp, we can re-inspect everything, see if there's anything seeping out of maybe radiator hoses, any type of oil lines that you can possibly see from down in the engine bay. And the same thing goes for under the truck, around the oil pan, transmission lines and stuff like that. Visually inspect all those now that it's been up to temperature, and be careful being under the vehicle while it's hot. Of course, the exhaust system is going to be hot. So before I continue on, a couple things that I was thinking about that I forgot to mention during the underhood inspection as far as fluid change. Power steering is another one to check while you're under there. If the fluid smells really burnt, could be a sign the pump or the box is going out. And Chevys especially were bad for this back in the earlier body styles. You'll also be able to feel it or hear it in the steering. The steering may make a weird noise, or it might be really hard to steer. That could give you an indication that the power steering system is failing in some sort, form, or fashion. So now, if you've gone through all those checklists and everything seems to be fine and you like the truck, now's probably the time to buy the truck. So the biggest things that I want to get at, and I do this on when I've made my vehicle purchases used, don't get so caught up in buying the vehicle or wanting the vehicle that you miss blatantly obvious things. you have to contain your excitement sometimes. Even though you may want the truck so bad, you're going to ignore anything that's wrong with it because you want it so bad. You don't want to screw yourself. So the biggest things that I want to hit on that you should always do when buying a used vehicle, of course, you need to drive it more than just a couple minutes. Tell the dealership, I would like to take this on a long test ride. I did it for the Duramax. The dealership was really understanding. I asked him what his average time was on a test ride, and he goes, well, probably about 15 minutes. And I said, I would like to have the vehicle for anywhere between half an hour to an hour. And he was perfectly fine with that. And I did. I took the Duramax on a half an hour to an hour trip. I went up the interstate. I went through town. I even found gravel parking lots and off-road spots to really shake the truck down to see if anything was wrong with it. Dealerships, to make the sale, are normally going to do anything they can to get the sale. And if they've got nothing to hide, they'll have no problem with you driving the vehicle a little longer than 5 to 10 minutes. So on top of a good test ride, letting it start up cold, doing your mechanical inspections and electronics on the inside, and especially if it's a four-wheel drive truck, making sure that four-wheel drive works is very, very important when buying a used pickup truck. So I hope you guys found this video valuable and you learned something from it. That's been my experience buying used vehicles. Everyone's got somebody, or they have their own horror story from buying a used vehicle. Unfortunately, there are people out there that are looking to get one over on somebody else or to pawn off their problems onto another person. And I hope that after watching this video, maybe you'll be able to spot somebody that's doing that with a video, and maybe you don't end up in that situation being screwed on a vehicle purchase. I apologize that the video was so long, but there is so much to go over when you're buying a used vehicle that I felt like I needed all that time to cover it. Sorry if I flew through it. I was trying to cram it all into one video, but I really appreciate you guys watching. Like I said, I hope you found it useful. Hit that subscribe button if you're not already. Drop any comments you got down below, maybe advice that you have for anybody watching the video down below that maybe I have missed, or if you just want to ask me a simple question, you can do it down in the comments section below or over on Instagram at Austin04_C71. I appreciate you guys watching. Thank you for all the good video ideas. I have a lot more coming for you guys. Take care. Have a great day.